I'm afraid I went through this whole thing without the mic on, so I'll do it again. Okay. So let's go ahead and let's look at, I want to share my screen here. Let me pull up. First, let's pull this up. You're going to get a handout when you take your test, and you have access to this. This is in the announcements, and it's also in the resources folder. But it tells you what you're going to do. It helps you go through what test do I use. What am I testing? Well, I'm testing a mean. So now, do I know the population standard deviation? If that's yes, then here's what I'm going to follow. If that's no, then this is what I'm going to follow. Sorry about that. This is what I'm going to follow. I'm testing one proportion. That's with categorical data. I'm going to use the z-distribution, and I'm going to use the z-test. And it's right here. How do I do it in StatCrunch? I'm going to test one variance against a standard. There's what I do. And here's how I do it on StatCrunch. Okay? Now, I'm going to tell you, whenever you test anything against a standard value, that's a one sample test. For instance, let's say we're looking at means, and you're only given the standard deviation for one sample. That's a really good hint that it's a one sample test. It's not a two sample test. Then you'll be given the means and the standard deviations for two samples, right? Now, the two samples can be independent. I will tell you that you usually don't know the two population standard deviations, so that doesn't talk about it. Here's pooled and here's not pooled. You may want to go into your book in chapter 9 and read about the difference between pooled and not pooled. What if I'm going to do two means that are dependent? Well, that's a match pairs test. And that's a before and after. And you look at the mean of the differences. So you find the differences and basically you treat it like a one sample test. I have two proportions. Here is what you need for two proportions. Here is what you need for two variances. And the last one has to do with our last unit. We have more than two means, then you're going to use an ANOVA, one-way ANOVA. More than two proportions, you use a chi-squared goodness of fit test. If you have more than two proportions, you're going to test for independence. Okay, that's also called a contingency table. All right, just FYI so that you know. So this is an additional thing that you will be getting on when you take your exam. Okay, let's look at the announcements that I put up there today. So your final exam has a paper pencil part, and that is comprehensive over everything. There will be 22 points in my math lab, my stat lab, and those are only over chapters 10 through 12. You'll be able to get your Triola tables and formulas like you had last time, and then the handout that we just talked about. You can also use one side of an 8.5 by 11-inch page of notes. Okay? You have till the end of the day on the 9th to take the test. Somebody asked if the test is timed. No, it's not. But sitting there for 6 hours, you're not going to be any smarter in hour 4 than you were in hour 1. So just sometimes you just have to fish or cut bait. All right. I do want to talk a little bit about the exam 3 key, and I'm not sure why it isn't working like I wanted it to, but it's at the bottom of the week 6 folder, and you have my video key, and you also have a PDF document of me working through the test. If you have questions after you've watched the video key, let me know. I'll be glad to go over it. One of the big things I saw was this has only sample data. We do not know the standard deviation from the population. So this has to be, we have to use a critical T, not a critical C. And some of you had some real crazy critical T. So just, I show you how to do it in the video, and you can figure out how to do it in StatCrunch. Okay, number 3 was a 1 sample t-test of means, and it was directional, so that's one-tailed. Number 4 was a z-test, a proportion, 1 sampled, 1 tailed. 5, it's before and after, so this is a matched pairs test. On a matched pairs test, make sure you think about the direction of the sign in your alternative hypothesis. And number 6 was a 1 sample, 2 tailed chi-squared test of variance. We just were testing, are they the same or not? Okay, so look at that video. If you have questions, let me know. Okay. Okay, I want to talk about, an assignment in, here we go, in my stat lab. I put an assignment out there to help you practice. So it's here, it's 25 questions, but this is not graded. Yes, you'll get a grade, but the grade isn't counted in the course. So you can do this, so I guess it's an optional assignment, but it's going to be a good way to review some basic premises from all chapters we've worked with. Okay? Oh, some things I talked about in the recording that didn't have any sound was, let's look at your e-text, and I want to show you some general places to practice doing inference testing. And the first thing I do is go to the end of chapter 8. So let's look at page 438. try this. And go to the end of the chapter materials. Okay, and I still have that dark box, but I don't know why. But what I want to show you on page, I want 408. Okay, so your pages are a little bit different than mine. I'm not feeling love here. It'll be easier to do this. Well, anyway, at the end of Chapter 8, there's some cumulative review exercises. The answers to the odds are in the book, and they are 6-step tests. The other thing I want to show you is on the final, I put together a little outline to help you with the 6-step test with the inference testing. So this will be on every inference test, and oh, got to tell you that part. There's 8 questions on the paper pencil part final. There's 7 inference tests, and if it's just an inference test, it's worth 17 points. If it's an inference test plus something else, then the something else is worth 10 points, so it's worth 27 total. There is one question made up of 5 statements, okay? And the statements are kind of true, false, or sometimes, always, never. You need to pick the proper response and then tell me why, okay? And those are worth 5 points. The total on the paper pencil test is 204 points, 22 points on the MyStatLab for 226, and added 24 points to it for your name, so there's 250 points on the final, okay? That was in the email that I sent to you earlier today. What's that? Yeah. So this is the email that I sent you earlier today. So there you go. So it's worth 250 points, but it's 15% of your total grade. All right? So that's an important email for you to have looked at. But there are those cumulative review exercises at the end of Chapter 8, Chapter 9, Chapter 10, 11, and 12. That's going to give you a lot of practice. And then if you need to, this is the outline. So this to help you remember what you need to do in an inference test or a significance test. Those are all the same thing. And in the lectures, I call them 6-step tests. And I grade them according to the rubric. So these steps are worth 5 points. These steps are worth 5 points. The fail to reject or reject, that's a 2-pointer, and the layman's conclusion is 5 points. Now, here's the deal. In the test, you're going to tell me what test you're going to use, the value of the test statistic that you found it in StatCrunch, the p-value. Tell me if it's significant or not, but here is the big dollar question. Why is it or is it not statistically significant? And that's where you want to tell me how the p-value compares to alpha. Okay? So those are the things that are important as you study. So if you have questions, let me know. Make sure you check your testing center's hours. If you, I'm going to send your test to the same testing center that you used for exam 3. If you have any problems while you're testing, make sure you have the testing center staff give me a call. I will be available. So I hope this gives you a start of what to study for the final exam. Best of luck to you. And again, if you have questions, you let me know.